I remember hearing a story years ago from when my brother was in a small Christian college, so he could have been my older brother just BSing me. I don't know. The dorms were basically large closets that barely fit the bunk beds provided. One night in the boys' dorm, one of the guys woke up randomly to an uneasy feeling, like how all encounter stories start. He looks to his clock and notices the time, something like 3:02 a.m. or something, and notices that it doesn't seem to be moving. He was on the top bunk, and he said in the corner of his dark room he saw what he thought was a long-haired child crouching there, with their hair touching the ground all around. As the child notices he is awake, they come toward him and climbing up his bunk. It was described to me as feeling evil intent approach. In fear, the guy is locked in place, and this thing that he now up close didn't call a child, as it had claw-like fingers and demonic eyes. The thing jumps onto his chest and begins scratching the hell out of him. As he struggles with the being yelling and fighting, his roommate seems to be unable to hear the conflict only a few feet away, and stays unnaturally asleep. The time finally shifts. His roommate wakes up to the fighting, but the creature is gone, leaving a whole bunch of scratch marks on his chest. The odd part is, in the girls' dorm, a girl had the same exact experience. She woke up at the same exact time, 3:02 a.m., with frozen time and evil lingering in the air, and watching a small, hostile, long-haired evil child creature in the corner of her room come at her. But as it climbed up her bunk, she yelled out for Jesus and started praying against it, and poof, it disappeared. With this being a Christian college, the administration believed them, but seemed to hush the event as quickly as possible. Could have just been a tale to spook me 12 years ago, but I've always found it good enough to not care of if it isn't true. I want to start this off by saying, I don't know how this is possible, but I know it is happening to me. I know I haven't gone crazy. I'm being stalked and tortured in my dreams. I don't know who the man is, as I've only ever seen him wearing his mask. It happens every night, right as I'm starting to fall asleep. I can hear someone knocking on my door. A few minutes later, my front door unlocks. Someone clearly comes in and shuts and locks the door. I think the stalker could possibly be a ghost, but I can't say for sure. Right before I end up falling asleep, it feels like I'm being possessed. I try to fight it, but no matter what I do, I can't get up. My nose and mouth starts to burn, and I can taste something sweet. It's almost like some kind of fungal rot. I asked online about other people's possessions, and they said they experienced the same kind of symptoms. So I fall asleep, or I get possessed, or whichever, and I start dreaming. The same man with the mask I saw in my doorway is now in my dream with me. Sometimes I end up in what looks and feels like hell, and other times I'll be in some kind of metal chair with a man standing over me with weird tools near the chair. The dreams, possessions, will last for what feels like a full day and night. The torture feels real, and he always finds a unique way to make it worse. The first dream I had with him was in a jungle. I was stuck in a large pit, and he was staring into the hole from the top. He started dumping random stuff into the hole. He threw in the exact order: a shoe, small clock, snail, claws from some kind of animal, bucket of crabs, and piles of leaves. That wasn't so bad, and I was mostly confused at first. He left, and I was stuck in the hole for hours before he came back. I assumed he was restocking, or whatever it was that he wanted to throw into the hole. This time was much worse though. He tossed a monkey into the hole. The monkey was really big and immediately started attacking. The worst part was that the dream didn't end when I died. I felt the splintering of my skull and the ripping of my flesh from my body. Whenever I died, the dream started over, and the exact same thing would happen over and over. The first dream repeated 6 times before I woke up, and I had 4 other dreams like this, and I haven't slept since. It's been 8 days, and I'm on a combination of caffeine pills I used to use at work and coffee to keep me up. I've also put on my mother's old shock collars. I press the button if I ever start to fall asleep, and it worked pretty well for the first few days. It's starting to lose its effectiveness though, so I had to use my mini stun gun. It definitely works better, but I've started to lose feeling in my leg, and I started using my other leg. I also had to stop taking my medication. It helps me calm down, but it almost made me fall asleep the first 2 days, so I hid it from myself so I wouldn't try to take it. I've also noticed something. If I stand at the door around the time he comes in, I can stop him from coming in. I started knocking back when he knocks, and he doesn't try to unlock the door to come in. He just keeps knocking, and I keep knocking back. It takes about 20 or 30 minutes before he stops knocking. He doesn't leave though. I can feel him still standing out there until tomorrow. He used to go away, and I don't know what I did differently that made him disappear. Another reason I know I'm not crazy is because I have a pet chihuahua, and she can sense when he comes now too. She growls and whines at the door even before he starts knocking, which is good because it gives me enough warning to get there by the time he starts. A few days ago, he didn't knock on the door, but I think he took her. I can't find Sweetie anymore though, and am worried that he could have done something to her. Her food and water dishes are gone too, which is really strange because I'm the only one in the house. He knocks at around the same time every night, anywhere from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m. I'm writing because I need help figuring out what to do to make him go away. I'm out of food, and to be perfectly honest, I would rather starve in here than go out with him still there. Am I being stalked? Is there a ghost trying to kill me? I'm running out of pills to help keep me up, so if anyone could help me with something I can do as soon as possible, it would be really helpful. I can explain the other dreams I had if it helps people figure out what's going on, and what I can do to stop him. I'm going to draw a picture of his mask and show it, just in case someone has dealt with this thing before. A few days before leaving my hometown and starting life anew, I took one last stop by the local cemetery. My aunt had died a few years prior, and I was very close to her. When she passed, I would take care of her grave, cleaning it up and decorating it for the holidays and her birthday. Just something to let her memory live on, I guess. Well, on that rainy Tuesday, I was saying my goodbyes. As usual, I brought a bouquet of her favorite red roses to place on the gravestone before telling her how much I missed her and to thank her for everything she's done. The lot is right next to a World War II memorial area. As I was walking towards her stone, I noticed a lone grave in the corner of the memorial plot. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about something so simple, but I felt compelled to go over to it. The gravestone had details of a young Navy sailor, with his rank and the ship he was on. My heart felt so heavy. He was so young. I looked to the flowers in my hand and placed a single rose on the stone before heading over to my aunt's grave. Fast forward a month and I'm now settled in my new home. Strange things have been happening. I have a radio on the kitchen counter that turns on by itself, and it's almost always playing the oldies. I'll be in the kitchen and see a male figure out of the corner of my eye standing in the doorway. I've heard "Sweetheart, where are you?" on multiple occasions. I had thought my boyfriend came home from work the first time, but I was the only one home. I've had someone whisper "dear" and "darling" in my ear, clear as day. I felt someone lay down on my bed next to me. It's all too strange. My only question is, what is happening? Did I upset his resting place by giving him the rose? Did he get attached? Should I be worried? So it's been a little while since the last time I talked about the Navy sailor ghost that I gave a rose to. I'm now convinced the entity is something more sinister. Since my boyfriend works second shifts, he comes home early the next morning, so I'm home alone for a good amount of time. I won't sleep in my bed anymore, but on the couch in the living room when he's at work. My boyfriend keeps waking up with handprints or long scratch marks on his neck. I have even woken up with prints on both my wrists. My cats refuse to go into the bedroom. Things keep falling off of shelves. The TV turns on by itself and the lights flicker on and off. I can still hear the whispered, disembodied voice in my ear saying darling or dear. But this thing is causing physical harm to my boyfriend, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I had my place blessed by a family friend who is a priest, and I truly believe that made it angry. I won't call it a him anymore, because I refuse to believe that this thing is or was human. I've had my fair share of demonic experiences before, and I'm sure it's a demonic presence. I won't acknowledge it anymore, but I'm so scared, not for me, but for my boyfriend and my cats, and I think it knows that. For now, I'm going to look into things I can do to keep us safe. If anyone has any suggestions or knows why this is happening, please let me know. When I left the military and secured a new job, I had to move from Norfolk, Virginia to a much closer home in Washington, D.C. I lived there alone for a year until my wife had finished her military service and was able to move her and the kids out to where I was living. When the time came, we settled on renting a small 3-bedroom townhouse. We weren't expecting to be there long, as my goal was to leave Virginia and get a job elsewhere. As always with life, nothing stays as planned. We ended up living in that house for 7 years, until we settled on just buying a home. Those 7 years were filled with some strange occurrences in this house. It all started with a discussion my oldest son would have with his mother and I about his room at night. He had the second largest bedroom, and at the time, he was 4 and our daughter was 3. Our son would tell us how a little boy would come to him in his room at night and talk to him. He said he would talk about how he had to hide from the bad man, because he would kill him if he found him. We were confused, but figured maybe he was just having some weird dreams. This went on for a couple of years, though, until he started to get closer to 12, when he ended up having to move rooms. We decided because our youngest daughter is getting older, she needed a bigger room, so the wife and I moved our room into the basement, and moved our son into our old room, and moved our daughter to his old room. Then it started again, except with our daughter. She started to tell us how she would see this boy, and unlike my son, it was scaring her. She would often sleep on the couch in the living room, and this is where her old habit of needing to sleep with lights and a TV on started as well. This isn't where it all ended, though. There was an occasion where I was taking a nap on the couch in the living room, and my wife, laying opposite of me on the couch, was just sitting and reading a book when she saw something. She looks up with her skin pale and asks if I saw what she saw. I didn't, and asked what did she see, and she said she'd seen what looked like a very short person walk by the couch right behind where I was laying. Whatever, or whoever it was gone when I turned around, and well, she even saw this thing disappear right in front of her. Needless to say, this terrified her a little. My wife has always been a bit more sensitive to paranormal things, so she always did see more than I ever did. On another day, while I was at work and the kids were at school, she told me she was laying on the couch and could see right up the stairs to the first landing, and a little boy in very old clothing was actually sitting on the stairs. She explained that she had asked the boy what his name was and how old he was, and even invited him to sit on the couch with her if he was lonely. She said there was not a single answer and the boy just stayed where he was. Now, I never witnessed or really saw anything happen, but I have had my own experiences as well with this boy. Back before the rooms were moved around, there were many times when the wife and the kids would go to see her mother, and I would be home alone for weeks at a time. No matter what I did, you always felt like somebody was sitting with you or watching you. I had a problem with having to sleep in the dark in the home when everyone was gone. I used to sleep in our bedroom when it was upstairs, but I couldn't anymore, as every time I did, there just always seemed to be someone in the room with me or standing in the hallway. Now, shortly before we ended up moving, there was a series of the same incident that got me to the point where I could never even sleep in the upstairs room anymore, ever. My wife and I don't sleep in the same rooms. It's due to our habits. She needs lights and a TV on, and I need darkness and silence. So we just sleep in other rooms. Well, I opted to just stay on the couch every night. But for a few nights I had to sleep in my son's room because we had to get rid of the old couch and wait for our new one to arrive. My son had a trundle bed, so I slept on it for a few nights. Every night I slept on this thing, I would be falling asleep, and then I would just feel like someone or something would lay down right next to me. I wouldn't see an indentation, but as soon as I would look, there would be no one there. I at first thought, well, maybe it was one of the cats we owned, but they were never in the room with us up there. To be honest, they just never went up there in general. This would happen every night, and when I brought it up one day, my son, who was now 11, told me, yeah, happens all the time. I used to be afraid, but now I'm used to it. I did research on the house. However, there was no listed history of a boy living there, or even dying on the property. The only history of the area was that it used to be mostly trees where we lived many years ago, and the area was also where a Civil War battle had happened before. Still no mention of the deaths of young children anywhere. To this day, in an odd way, I feel horrible about moving out of that house because being a parent has made me feel as if we left a child there to be lonely, and perhaps that is all it was. The child's spirit was just happy there were people there, and now he didn't have to feel lonely anymore. Who was this little boy? Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please give a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Perhaps click the bell for notifications, and remember, hell is empty, and the devils are here.